Now we are going to look at the reserve budget. If you've had this property for multiple years, you may have prior years' budgets. On this one, we see that we have the 2018 reserve budget, and we've started our 2019 reserve budget. The reserve line items should come from the reserve study that you have prepared for your property. Typically, these are prepared by a third-party vendor. It will outline the capital expenditures that you will need to be prepared to expense in future years. Most reserve studies will actually look 25 years out, so you can anticipate expenses today, tomorrow, 5 years from now, 20 years from now. So for example, on this one, we see that we have some expenses that we're anticipating for 2019, including landscaping, mailboxes, specifically trees, and pool repairs. We also see that we anticipate a beginning balance in January of $30,000. So we look at where does that number come from? Go to your worksheet tab, ending balance, and this is your balance sheet as of June 30th, 2019. So as of June 30th, 2019, it says we have $44,153 in the reserve account. Well, we're about $14,000 off from what we anticipate. So if we go back to our reserve worksheet, we're going to find out why. So look back at your reserve expenses that you anticipated in 2018. This is where your reserve actual is going to come in handy. Maybe you already know that you have not completed the pool repairs, or you have not been expensed for the sign and monument landscaping. So you're anticipating that those expenses are going to come in towards the end of the year. So as the property manager, you're already anticipating that $14,000 is going to be spent from July to December 2018. So that's why you've come up with a $30,000 estimated beginning balance. Now we want to enter in the rest of the numbers. The allocation from dues, where does this come from? If you go to your comparison worksheet, for the 2019 budget, you have budgeted $15,000 to be allocated to the reserve account. So if you go back to your reserve worksheet, that's where this number comes from. Initiation fees from closing. Great question. Does your property have initiation fees? Or sometimes they're considered to be reserve fees or move-in, move-out fees. Are the initiation fees or reserve fees allocated to go directly to the reserve account? Is the move-in, move-out, or initiation fee only allocated to go to the operating account? These are two things that are very important and will determine if you have any income in this line item. Interest income, where does this come from? Well, this is actually going to come from your actual for 2018. What is the average interest income that you're receiving? At this property, they're receiving on average $35 a month in interest income. And then you want to enter in your numbers down here for what the expenses are for your budget for the reserve account. Remember, these are budgeted numbers. This does not mean that if you put $20,000 in mailboxes on your reserve expense for your reserve budget that you are going to spend $20,000 in 2019. It is simply a budget. Again, make sure that all of your formulas are accurate, that this number here is $30,000 plus the $15,000 minus the $37 is going to give you $7,920. So you're saying that you're going to have $15,000 coming into a reserve account that has a beginning balance of $30,000, and you're wanting to spend $37,000 in 2019. That's when you go back to the board and say, we may have a little bit of an issue, because leaving $7,000 in your reserve account is not a healthy reserve. you have to anticipate there may be some capital expenditures that weren't on your reserve study, that you weren't expecting to have. So make sure you have these very honest conversations with your boards when preparing a reserve budget, because these are capital improvement expenditures. So maybe you don't need to do the mailboxes in 2019. Maybe you only do half of the mailboxes in 2019. Or maybe you wait until your reserve account is adequately funded in order to do the mailboxes. So now we've kind of looked at what's happening when we're talking about our reserve budget for 2019.